Sharon Anyango Odhiambo is a Southern Voices Network for Peacebuilding Scholar with the Wilson Center's Africa program. She's also a communications and outreach officer with the African Technology Policy Studies Network in Kenya. Sharon, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, John.
I want to talk about your research on media and election-related violence in Africa, the lessons from Kenya. Maybe you could help by helping us define the problem. What is the level of what you call election-related violence?
Okay, thank you. So election-related violence is something that I must say it's like a common phenomena in Kenya. So the first instances of election violence was reported in 1992, and that is when Kenya became a multi-party democracy. So in 1997, there was also another election-related violence, and you find that from those two instances, the 1992 one and 1997, we had two commissions that were formed. We have the Kiliku Parliamentary Select Committee and the Akiwimu Commission. So these two commissions were tasked to investigate the root cause of the conflict so as to avoid a future incidents in the future. But unfortunately, there was a lot of political issues surrounding those reports, and nothing came out from those reports, meaning that the findings and the recommendations were not implemented. So in 2007, again, we had a big instance of the post-election violence, which was worse. Almost at least 1,000 people were killed and 300,000 displaced. So that was a big number. And as a result of that, in 2008, another commission was formed. It's the Kriegler and the Waki Commission. So this commission was formed first to investigate the loopholes in the constitution, because during that violence, there was a lot of things that could not be solved through the constitution. And then it was also supposed to go and look at the root cause. Why is this violence coming out? So you find that from the findings and the implementation of the findings and the recommendations of that report, it's what led to at least a more peaceful election in 2013. So going forward, there's still that worry, especially when it comes to media. There's a report assessment that was released yesterday by Internews, and it was talking about the local radio is still being used to spur hatred. In Masai, Samburu, there's still some conflict. And according to the assessment, it was saying that there's a politician in Samburu who called the other politician from the Maasai community as a whore. So you find that such abuses, it's not taken as personally, but it's like you're attacking the community. So there's need for at least the local media, especially at this point when there's a lot of tension, to be at least careful on what they report. Also, as recently, there was this media report on the Nation newspaper, and it was saying that Raila Odinga is planning to be sworn in Tanzania. Yeah, it was alleging that an MP was making that claims against the opposition leader. So for me, I think that report was misleading, because right now we are not sure who in the presidential candidate who will battle it out with Uhuru. And then you find, like, if you put such messaging that so and so is planning to be sworn in outside, especially at this tension, I don't think it is good. And it's like the media house realized and they pulled out that section. So I think going forward with especially the upcoming primaries, we need to see the media to be more neutral as much as they report, but they also need to weigh with the situation in the ground. We don't want them to be accused of instigating violence again.
When you talk, and I've heard you speak about the role of the press as an educator, as a public educator, and how it can be a force for good, but when it gets it wrong, it becomes part of the problem. What the problems with the reporting? Is it a lack of training? Is it a standard or an orientation to reporting that's different and not conducive to promoting a more peaceful process? Or is it an ownership problem that wants the news presented in a certain way? How do you trace the problem when it doesn't work?
Okay, first and foremost, the media is in a business, all media houses, and they also want to communicate to the people. So you find most of them use sensational headlines so as to attract the audience to their media outlets. So another problem with our media houses is that, especially now during elections, we have a lot of politicians who have stake in media houses. So it's gonna be a challenge when it comes to reporting, because we are really not sure if this politician will use the mass media to communicate their agenda, because you know the mass media is a main tool of communication. We all depend on the media for information. As much as we have the social media, not everything reported on social media is usually the truth, but when it comes to the mainstream media, we are sure that we are getting accurate information. So they really, really need to be careful.
Yeah. And what will it take? Do you see this as a media education or training problem, or is it more of a political problem where they have to be influenced or encouraged to do something more responsible? How would you approach any prescribed fixes?
Okay, for me, I'll approach it in terms of training. There's training that is being done, but more need to be done, and various stakeholders also need to come and work with those stakeholders that are already working with the media house, because the training should not be assumed that during elections is when now we come and train our journalists, because there are other conflicts like the cattle rustling situation in Samburu. So as much as we are trying to prevent conflict during elections, we must also need to come and try and prevent conflict, especially in these communities that keep on fighting. Today you hear that they are fighting, the next time they're also fighting. So there's need also for the media to come up in large numbers and at least educate the people the importance of peace.
So is this what I've heard you refer to as peace journalism?
Yes, peace journalism is where like we have two conflicting communities. Let me take it to the issue of Samburu and Maasai, which they have conflict. So you find that when you're reporting, it's advisable that you don't put like if somebody from the Maasai community was killed, when you're reporting, try and avoid mentioning the community that that person was killed or the number of people that were killed, because most attacks are usually retaliatory attacks. So you find that if you announce that, let's say, 4 Maasais were killed by Samburus, so you find that the Samburus will have that outrage anger and they'll want to revenge. So you find that if they heard from the news that it was 4 people they killed, so they might say that, okay, they killed 4 people from our community, so we'll retaliate back and kill 8 people as a revenge attack. So I think the media should also focus on that. At least let's try and not mention the communities, the number of people killed, because so far from the experience, from the history, from the violence that has been happening, the attacks have been retaliatory attacks. So they need to come up as a peaceful instrument and at least help to bring these communities together.
A journalist hearing this might say, well, wait a second, we're not in the business of withholding information. And so is there a role for it sounds like you're putting a lot on the press. What about the public who is responding violently at different times? Do they have responsibility, no matter what is reported, to be more responsible in how they react politically?
Okay, the public has the right to receive information. I won't deny that. But also we need to look at the risk. It's not like too much gagging, but you're reporting the information as it is happening. The only thing that you're not doing is portraying a particular community as a perpetrator of violence. Just say that there was an attack that happened, 2 people were killed, but do not portray as if it's like a war that is happening. There are 2 parties in war and they are fighting each other.
Is this like the debate in this country over whether you say Islamic terrorist or whether you just talk about terrorist? Are you talking about painting an entire community with a broad brushstroke?
Yeah, that it is, because we had that debate also in Kenya in the recent past. We have had that issue of terrorist attack, and there was some instance where terrorism was being like painted that it has to do with the Islamic community, and it brought tension among people, and there was a lot of campaign. The church also came out to tell people that Islamic is not terrorism, so which I think is good, because if people have that image, you find that people will start discriminating people from the Muslim community because they think that they're all terrorists, which it's not the case.
So can you point to a country maybe that has best practices that you think are working that Kenya can learn from?
The US is doing a great job, despite the fact that the media has challenges, but I like the way they criticize the government. So in Kenya, that's not the case, because in some instances, especially when it comes to investigative journalism, or when, let's say, the media house releases a scandal like we had recently, the health, a lot of money was lost in the Ministry of Health, and the former PS Muraguri was quoted, he was threatening the journalist who covered that story. So I think it's also important for the government to at least work and appreciate a free press, because with a free press, it's able to at least criticize them. And from that criticism, they're able to know that the citizens are on tour to see what they're doing. Yeah, so if there's government support and also the media is doing its work openly, we need to help the media, let them report, let them criticize. So long as the information is correct and there's facts to support that fact, I think that will be great.
How close is Kenya to that, to what you described just now?
Kenya is doing a great job because, like in this regime, the country, a lot of scandals have been released and we have all had them through the media. We had the NYS saga, we had it through the media where a lot of money was lost. And we also have the recent health, the money that was lost in the Ministry of Health. So we all got this information through the media, and the media is playing a big role, especially when it comes to putting the government in check. Yeah, so at least they are verifying information that is given from the government.
Final quick thought is, with elections upcoming in 2017, how prepared is Kenya to do a better job than maybe in the past cycles?
The elections that are coming, I must say that it has really not yet taken that political shape. So we are still waiting to see how it will go. From tomorrow, there'll be the primaries. Political parties will be holding their primaries. So we are hopefully that it will be peacefully. And then the current president is planning also to seek for another term. But so far, we haven't heard officially. We don't know who will be his main opponent in the upcoming general elections. But we pray that things will go well, that it will be a peaceful election. A lot of training is currently happening in the media sector. Right now, there's a lot of training that is happening to the correspondents. So the correspondents, most information that is in the newsroom, 70% is usually from the correspondents, which I think this is a tactical move in terms of training, because they're the people who are in the grassroots and they're the people who will be reporting the information to the public. So I think and I hope that that training will be essential, and I hope that the media will be more responsible. Another thing that I wish to highlight is that the TV hosts right now are facing a big challenge, and I hope that the various stakeholders who are currently working with media houses will see it as a challenge, will see it as a problem and at least work on it on time, because right now you find that the TV and the radio hosts are hosting debates with various contenders. So sometimes you find that it explodes whereby they're attacking each other. So as a TV host or a radio host, you are tasked to control that discussion so that at least it doesn't explode, but let it happen in a mature manner, and at least people to talk, not to attack each other in a personal way, but let's have ideologies which will help the common mwananchi.
Yeah, so some problems are universal, and media's attraction to conflict, unfortunately, is one of them. Sharon,
The platform.
thank you for joining us. Thanks for your time here at the Wilson Center and the important work you're doing, and good luck when you return home.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you.